Good morning, guys. I need to share something with you. Do you know the guy that does everything right? He gets up early, he's super disciplined, he grinds through the hard times. His life looks perfect from the outside. But there's one thing he doesn't talk about. The weight that sits in his chest. The feeling that no matter how much he does, no matter how many boxes he checks, it's never quite enough. And if he's really honest with himself, he's terrified that if he stops moving, even for a day, the whole thing fall apart. I lived in that pattern for years, and I didn't understood what was driving it until I watched a character live it out across 3 films. So clearly, so honestly that I had to pause the movie and sit with it. His name is Adonis Creed, and I don't mean his boxing record. I mean the belief buried underneath every fight, every rep, every 5 a.m. gym session, the one that explains why he wins and feels nothing. Because once I understood his flaw, I realized it was mine too, and there's a good chance it might be yours as well. So the first Creed film in 2015, The Final Fight. Adonis fights against Privy Ricky Conglon, the #1 light heavyweight in the world. And he's getting beaten up. He's on the floor, knocked down.
Hard left hook by Conlon. Creed backs off.
He's hurt and Rocky's in the corner about to stop the fight. And you need to understand why this matters. The last time Rocky stood in a corner and didn't stop the fight, Apollo Creed, Adonis' father, was killed in the ring by Ivan Drago 30 years ago. And Rocky has carried that guilt for his entire life. So when he sees Adonis down, bleeding, barely conscious, every instinct he has says to stop this. But Adonis looks at him and says,
I'm stopping this one now.
Don't, okay, let me finish. I gotta prove it.
Prove what?
I'm not a mistake.
Look at me.
I want you to really sit with this line, because it changes the meaning of the entire movie. On the surface, Adonis looks like an underdog story. A kid from a rough background fighting his way to the top. But that's a surface read. Adonis was never in the ring to win a belt. He was trying to answer a question he has been carrying ever since he was a little kid. Was I supposed to be here at all? He was born from an affair. His mother died and his father got killed in the ring by Ivan Drago before he even was born. He spent his childhood in juvenile detention, bouncing from group home to group home. He was fighting kids twice his size. He was the result of something that, by the world's logic, wasn't supposed to happen. And that belief, maybe I wasn't supposed to happen, that became an engine underneath every single thing he did throughout his life. Every title shot, every training camp, every time he pushed himself past his own limits. None of this was about a belt. It was about permission. Permission to carry a name he was terrified that he hadn't earned. And the worst part, the pattern that makes this so dangerous. From the outside, this looks the same as ambition. Because a guy running on that fuel, he is impressive. He looks like the hardest worker in the room. He's at the gym before anybody else. And he's the one that leaves after everybody already left. And people admire him for it. They call it drive, they call it discipline. But it's bottomless, and that's the problem. You win a title and you still feel nothing. You beat the biggest names in boxing and the ache the next morning is still there. Because no amount of external proof can answer the internal question about whether you deserve to be alive. Maybe you recognize that, maybe you don't want to. But did you ever have hit the goal and immediately felt the need to set a new one? Not because you were excited, but because stopping meant sitting with emotions you have been running away from for years. Then you already know what I'm talking about. Let me take you back to the very beginning of the movie, the first scene. 1998, young Adonis in a juvenile facility in LA. He's just been fighting another kid and they put him in solidarity. A woman comes to visit, Mary Ann Creed, Apollo's widow. And there is this detail in this scene that most people miss. During the entire conversation, young Adonis won't look at her. His body language is closed off and his voice is hostile. And one detail, his fist, the right one, is clenched the entire conversation. Like a kid who's ready to swing at anybody who comes near him. Then Mary Ann tells him who his father was, Apollo Creed, the heavyweight champion of the world. And she says, I want you to come live with me. You can see the close-up on the fist, and for the first time in Adonis' life, it unclenches. That one gesture, the clenched to unclenched fist, is the entire 3 movies in one single image. A boy who's been fighting the world because he thought the world doesn't want him. And the first time somebody tells him, you belong to something, his whole body lets go. But, and this is what makes this whole story so much more complicated than it looks. Belonging didn't fix the wound. It just dressed it up. Mary Ann takes him, he grows up in a mansion, he stays out of trouble. Good school, good degrees, he gets a college education, lands a job at a financial services firm, gets promoted, gets the corner office. From the outside, his life looks perfect. But Adonis is 15-0 in underground fights in Tijuana, crossing the border to fight in bars on the weekend. And one day, he quits his job. He walks into his office boss and he quits. Why? Why would somebody leave a comfortable life other people would kill to have? Because it felt borrowed. That's the only way I can describe it. The corner office, the promotions, all the nice things. This felt like something that somebody else has built for Adonis. The fighting, that felt real. The only time Adonis felt like himself was when he got hit. And I think a lot of you guys can understand this more than you would ever admit to anybody else. The guy with a decent job, a stable life that is respected by everyone, who lies awake at 3 a.m. knowing something's off, who has this restlessness within him that just doesn't shut up. And he can't explain it to anybody, because from the outside it looks perfect and he looks fine. That restlessness, sometimes it's ambition, but sometimes it's a wound that learned to dress itself up as ambition. And for Adonis, it was always the second one. He couldn't sit still, because sitting still meant feeling what he's been running since the juvenile facility in LA. There's a scene midway through the first film that I keep coming back to. Adonis is alone in his room. He puts on an old fight. It's Rocky versus Apollo Creed, his own father. He projects it onto the wall. And then he begins to shadow box against this projection, against his own father. Director Ryan Coogler originally planned this scene differently. In the original version, Adonis was copying the moves of his father and not fighting against him. But they changed it and they decided that Apollo and Adonis were gonna have a little fight there. Think about what this scene actually is. A son alone in his room, throwing punches at a projection of a person that was dead his whole entire life. And you can see it here, how much it annoys him and how angry he is that his father was never around. He is trying to prove that he can stand against his own father and hold his ground. And you can't win that fight. That's what nobody tells you. Now there's a beautiful detail at the end of movie 1 that makes you think the wound almost healed. Adonis uses Creed's name for his title fight against Pretty Ricky Condon. He wears custom shorts, Johnson on the front, Creed on the back. Both names, both parts of his life. He loses the fights on points, but technically he won because the whole arena starts to shout Creed, Creed, Creed. He didn't win the belt, he won the name. He earned the right to carry it. And for just one moment you can see the tension leaving his face. Question, was I supposed to be here? Was finally answered. Except the second movie shows you that earning it once was never enough for Adonis. And the reason why is going to sound uncomfortably familiar to you. Creed 2 opens with Adonis as a heavyweight champion. Bianca by his side. He got the belt, he got the life. For the first time, he looks like he has a stable life. And then Ivan Drago walks back into the picture. The man who killed Apollo Creed in the ring 30 years ago. And he brought his son Victor. Victor challenges Adonis for the title. And the moment Adonis hears the name Drago, something behind his eyes changes. This isn't a regular fight. This is the son of a man who took his father. This is history trying to repeat itself. Rocky refuses to train him, refuses to be in his corner. The last time Rocky stood in a corner when a Creed and a Drago were fighting, his best friend died. And he's never going to forgive himself for that. So he says no, but Adonis takes the fight anyway. Alone, without his mentor, without the one person who actually understands what he is carrying deep within himself. Victor throws an illegal shot, nearly ending Adonis' life the same way Apollo Creed's life ended. And this is the turning point of all the three movies combined. And I think it's the moment that speaks to every guy that built his whole identity about the fact that he never stops. Because Adonis realizes something that breaks him. If he keeps trying to be his father's son, he is going to die like his father. The identity that drove him through the first film. I'm a Creed, I belong here, I earned this name. That same identity almost got him killed. The fuel that built everything is now the thing that could destroy him and his life. He falls apart. He can't train, he can't be present with Bianca, and she's pregnant with their first child. And Adonis is supposed to become a father. But his only role model about being a father is a man that died in the boxing ring trying to prove something to the world. That depression, and the film is honest enough to call it what it is. It isn't sadness. It's something worse. It's the gap between who you are and who you know you need to be to move on. I think every ambitious guy will hit this wall once. The identity that got you where you are, the relentless energy, the grinding, the never stopping, is now what you need to let go to become a new version of yourself and go to the next level. And you're standing there realizing that you don't know who you are without those identities. Because you have been running on that fuel for so long that you never stopped to ask yourself who you would be if these things fell away. And then something happens that shifts everything. Adonis' daughter Amara is born deaf. She can't hear anything. And then this man, this aggressive man, this leader, this powerhouse, this fighter, has to learn a new language, a new way to communicate with his own daughter. Sign language. He can't connect with her through aggression and ambition. He has to become soft to communicate with her. And that's the hardest thing these movies asked him to do. Because the fighting, the getting hurt, that was all part of his identity and the restlessness. But becoming soft to connect with his own daughter is the hardest thing he has to do in all the movies. Adonis fights again, but something has changed. He's not in the ring to avenge Apollo. He's there because he chooses to. And he's there because he wants to be there. And in the most powerful moment of the entire movie, Ivan Drago throws in the towel to save his own kid. He stops the fight and chooses Victor over his own legacy. Fathers choosing their own children over what they are trying to prove. That's the real resolution of Creed 2. And it applies to both sides of the ring, Creed and Drago. Creed 3 opens years later. Adonis is retired. He's a promoter running Delphi Boxing Academy. His family is thriving for the first time in all three movies. Life is stable, Adonis' life is genuinely good and relaxing. And then a man named Damian Anderson walks through the door of the gym. I need you to pay attention to this scene, because Damian is by far the most important character in all three movies. And he's not what you think he is. Damian was Adonis' best friend growing up. Same group house, same abusive caretaker. A man named Leon who abused both of them. And Damian was the real boxing champion. He won the Golden Gloves championship as a teenager. He had the fire, he had the talent. He had the whole boxing career ahead of him. Then one night in 2002, they both ran into that abusive caretaker Leon. And Adonis snapped. He attacks Leon, the man who abused both of them. And in the chaos that follows, Damian gets arrested and taken away. Adonis runs away and escapes the police. Mary Ann Creed adopts Adonis shortly after and gives him a new life. His life transforms overnight, while Damian gets taken to prison. 18 years, and in every single one of those years, Adonis never writes, he never visits, he never calls him, and Mary Ann Creed hides all the letters that Damian sends to Adonis. So for almost 2 decades, Damian watches Adonis, his former best friend, build the dream life they imagined together. The boxing championships, the dream life with the wife, the kids, the stable life, everything. And he felt like Adonis forgot about his former best friend. And the question this film plants in your stomach is the question, what differentiated them? They both had the fire, both had the boxing abilities. Why did Adonis get the good life and Damian became the worst life? Damian isn't the villain. He is what Adonis could have been Without this little bit of luck, without the right second name, and without Mary-Ann Creed. And when Damien shows up at the gym, watch what Adonis does. He is consumed by guilt. He invites Damien into his home, introduces him to his family, and gives him a space at his gym. He throws resources at the situation, money, time, opportunity. But the one thing he never does is he never says sorry to Damien for the past, for never reaching out to his former best friend. And I want you to be honest with yourself for a second. Does that pattern sound familiar? Guilt you try to pay off by being generous. Friend you stopped calling when life got better. The past you pretend doesn't exist because your current life is too comfortable to risk it. The version of yourself you left behind, and the quiet fear that that guy you left behind was more true to himself than you are. Adonis can't buy his way out of this, he can't train his way out of this because he's retired. Because the problem was never in the ring, never the discipline. It was 18 years of silence. The film builds towards the final fight between Adonis and Damien. And during the final there is this anime-like sequence where the ring falls apart. No ropes, no crowds, no cameras, just two men in an empty space fighting each other. Two boys from the same place finally having a conversation together after 18 years of silence. That's what this moment shows you. It's not a fight, it's a conversation. It's showing emotions to the other side. They do it with fists because neither of them knows how to communicate with the other side because they never learned it. Adonis wins the fight, but the fight isn't the resolution. What happens in the locker room afterwards is Damien admits defeat and Adonis apologizes. He finally says what he should have said 18 years ago. And the very last image of all these three movies is Adonis playfully sparring in the ring. No hard work, no emptiness, just a man and his daughter. And for the first time in all three movies, in the third movie, Rocky was never part of it because Adonis doesn't need a mentor anymore. He doesn't need a name to prove himself anymore because he has grown and he is capable of just being himself, being his own mentor. So let me bring this home. There's a term of what Adonis carries and does in all three movies. It's called the father wound. And one of its most common symptoms that nobody warns you about is overachieving or the drive to overachieve. A man builds something impressive, titles, status, wins. And underneath all of it, there's an ache that doesn't shift. Because he's not building towards something, he's running away from something. Feeling he picked up a long, long time ago. Maybe from a father who wasn't present. Maybe from a family that never told him, you are good enough, we are proud of you. Maybe from a version of himself he abandoned when life got better. And the overachievements became a mask. The discipline became a hiding place. And the more he accumulates, the more terrified he gets. Because now there's more to lose and he still believes he isn't supposed to have any of it. I think the question these three movies ask us, and it's worth sitting with us, is the following. What are you still trying to prove and who are you trying to prove it to? Because if the answer is somebody who's not there anymore, your father, your family, or the ghost in your head, then you are doing what Adonis did in that room. Throwing punches at a projection of yourself on the wall. And you already know how that fight ends. The thing that changes your life looks nothing like working harder. It looks like a conversation. It looks like accountability. It looks like saying the things you should have said long, long times ago. To the person you owe it to, including yourself. Adonis spent 3 movies learning something that we all are still trying to figure out ourselves. You don't earn peace. Peace is something that comes once you stop performing. That's what I've got for you today. If I managed to help you see something in yourself or in this character, then please leave a like, a follow, and drop a comment down below. Understanding what's driving you is step 1. Fixing what broke you is step 2.